Well, looky here. It's my last show of 2024. Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today podcast, a sports ethos presentation hosted by yours truly, Aaron Bruski. I'm running solo on today's show, and we're going to break down all sorts of major news that happened over the weekend. We're going to look at Monday's slate. We got a major trade that happened. Major, I guess that's overselling a little bit, but D'Angelo Russell was involved. We got Nick Young talking about this stuff. I guess that makes it somewhere between major and minor. We got Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton to the Lakers. We got kind of a big ramp for a guy in Noah Clowney that folks talked about a lot during the preseason. Mike Brown was fired. That feels like a year or so ago. And we had a little skirmish with Tyler Hero and Amon Thompson. I got problems, man. I every time I do my spotting board, I've got my dictation software just does all sorts of fun stuff, and I'm not going to correct it. I know, right? Andre's making fun of me. All right, let's say hello to our sponsor, Bet Online. They continue to be the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for online betting. There's so many of those in here, guys. There's so many of them. I'll see if I can read a couple to you today. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action, the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football to NBA to college basketball, NHL, and UFC. Head to the Bet Online website today and don't forget to use your promo code BLEAV for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. Bet Online, the game starts here. Yes, the major news. So D'Angelo Russell traded, thankfully. It's actually going back to Brooklyn and having a really wide open ramp there to do some interesting stuff. I mean, this is why you messed around with D'Angelo Russell in the first place is what if he had the season he had last season? What if he lands in a place where he could just kind of go nuts? Who knows how it's going to go? I mean, the tank race is definitely on. We're seeing teams that are tanking pick up the pace with that. 5 or 7 wins right now at the bottom of the standings, a bunch of teams located there. I'm going to talk about them as we go here, but this is a perfect scenario for him. I mean, he has top 40 to 70 value if you're in 8 or 9 cat leagues, potentially. That's huge. I mean, it wasn't happening in Los Angeles. He was barely creeping up and up over the cut line in these spots. So that's a massive deal. I don't think he's available on your waiver wire. If he is, go run, stop what you're doing and pick him up. But big news for him. Dorian Finney-Smith heading across to the Lakers. I think we're going to have an interesting situation here with Dorian Finney-Smith. He's been productive for Brooklyn, so he's been a fantasy guy. He hasn't been able to stay on the court. Who knows if that's truly injury related or not. When playing for a team that's sort of at full strength in the past, he has struggled to stay above the cut line. He's been a late round guy in those scenarios, and then he goes to Los Angeles, so the spotlight will be on him, and they're definitely going to want to get him into the mix, and I think they're going to want to see if they can maximize what he brings to the table. As far as what it do for the Lakers, that's, it makes them more competitive. We'll leave it at that. I don't know if it moves the needle for them, but it's something there. And as far as his fantasy value goes, I don't think you can project more than late round value. And I think the late round value is probably at about a 50-50 shot. Shake Milton joins him there. I don't think Shake Milton's going to be doing anything for the Lakers anytime soon. This does, for the Lakers, open things up. Austin Reeves, obviously buy low guy that we told you to go buy low for the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. You start to get a taste of what he's capable of when somebody like LeBron James sits. D'Angelo Russell being gone, that's going to just help open up more guard minutes, more guard shots, things of that nature. Dalton Connect probably gets a little freed up with this move. I don't think you should run and stop what you're doing to go pick up Dalton Connect. But he might creep up over the top 150 mark. When he's super red hot, we've seen that he can get up over the top 100 mark. So that does give him a little bit of upside in this scenario here. That said, I think what you can't do is just assume that that's going to be the case. So when you're making your add drop decisions, if you want to consider him a top 125 guy, top 150 guy, I think that's probably as high as I would go there. But some interesting pre-deadline trade action. And then the other side of the coin, Brooklyn, now with Dorian Finney-Smith out, Noah Clowney's ramp got big. And Clowney was a huge, buzzy guy in the preseason. After crunching the numbers and sort of looking at all the film, what I determined personally was that he wasn't going to be a target of mine but he was certainly a big name. And then the early injury didn't help him. And now top 260 value on the season. It's even a little tricky. He's had a couple big games where he's hit a bunch of threes. And people probably think, Noah Clowney is still that guy. He could end up being a buzzy guy. The thing that made him interesting was he was able to shoot threes, and it looked like he was going to be blocking some shots, but he hasn't done that. Just 0.8 combined defensive stats per game this season, and really not much to crow about elsewhere as well. He's just got 2 3-pointers a game. So he's showing you that he can shoot the three, but we need to see so much more, and really getting a lot of minutes already, 20 minutes per game. So it's not like we haven't seen what he's capable of. I would just chalk this up to Brooklyn being a bad place in general for fantasy assets right now. You never know which guy's going to be productive. And what you're hoping for is that they can morph toward being a team that everybody's role is clear. Even though they're bad and they're tanking, it's like they know what they're doing on a night-to-night basis. You know where the production's coming from, and some of these guys can start to get some bigger stat lines. Right now, most of these guys are outside of the top 150. Cam Thomas back. Cam Johnson starting to deal with injury, trade-related stuff. So again, a lot of moving pieces in Brooklyn. We'll see how that all goes. Mike Brown fired. I guess I'll probably touch on that at some point in time during the show. I don't think that this is changing much in Sacramento right now. They're going to go through a reckoning of sorts. It's going to be a rough season for them. If all goes well, they will do what they were kind of doing previously. The alternative is that it all goes to hell in a handbasket. That's 45 seconds on the Kings there for you. Tyler Hero. And or I could do an hour on it. You guys want the Kings Hour? I'll give you guys the Kings Hour. Shout out to Damian Barling, one of our former pod hosts, just went absolutely nuclear on De'Aaron Fox and the Kings on his show. And really shout out to the Sacramento media. Like, a lot of the folks that I used to work with a lot when I was covering the Kings, they have really stepped up, and their coverage of all of this has been so outstanding. That's not something that in the past, when I first got into the Sacramento news market, that they, some of the folks that are no longer there would never have been able to cover this the way that the folks that are there now have been covering it. So shout out Sacramento media. It's been great watching everybody sort of come up through the ranks and turn the city into the kind of media town that it's always been. All right. What else? Tyler Hero and Amen Thompson got into it, so we'll probably see some suspensions doled out. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't even know what a fight in the NBA looks like, but I did have an idea. I think if you want to make fighting in the NBA interesting, if 2 guys square up, the loser has to face Ime Udoka, who's already foaming at the mouth, and we'll see how tough guys are at that point in time. All right, let's get into the Monday preview. The first game on the slate, Chicago 5-point favorites in Charlotte. We've got Zach LaVine probable with a left toe injury. Josh Giddey probable with a right ankle injury. Ayo Dosunmu doubtful with a calf injury. It feels like he's got a bunch of games that he's going to be missing. Jalen Smith questionable with a left ankle issue. He missed Saturday's game. My big question with Chicago is the pivot on? Because if it is, there are players that you're going to want to get in on. I think at the top of the list for me is Kobe White. And there was a good Kobe White game in here recently, but I do still think that there's probably a small buy low window. I think people are pretty cool with Kobe White right now. I think they want to, they're generally favorable about having him on rosters. I think that they're, thinking maybe in the same way that I'm thinking that the second half of the season for Kobe White could be dynamic. But the numbers just aren't there. He's just top 130 over the last 7 games, 17 points, 2.3 triples, low numbers in rebounds and assists, lowish steals. The numbers just haven't quite been there. So I think the GM that's got Kobe White might not be protecting Kobe White the way that they need to be right now. Kobe White is the guy who's most likely to pick up the ball and run with it. I mean, we'll talk about Josh Giddey here in a second, because there's a really big conversation about Josh Giddey right now. But Kobe White, to me, is the one that's just sort of under the radar. If you want to go get an impact player for the second half of your season, go get Kobe White. Offer something in the top 100 range, maybe a better asset in the top 100 range, and you will end up jumping 50 ranks with that decision as we move on through the season here. The question for Chicago is, are they dealing Zach LaVine? There's been a ton of noise around him. And then if they deal Zach LaVine, one of the most interesting things that happened in fab bids over the weekend was Jalen Smith finally actually caught some hype. And it's been really, I don't know how to describe his season. I mean, he's been in the injury report the entire time, but he's played a lot of games. He's had a couple games where he's reached up and shown you something. And then a lot of games where he's done one or two things well, but not enough juice or not enough, juice from the squeeze or whatever. Like, he is a top 200 guy mostly this season in low minutes per game. But if they deal Nick Vucevic, then do we get the Jalen Smith that everybody wanted 3 seasons ago? And I think there is a lot of hype built up from those 3 seasons ago that people just want to connect on this bet, so to speak. So Jalen Smith in fab, there was a couple bigger bets on him. I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought that was forward looking, because if they're turning the page in Chicago, this is all what's going to happen here. And then Josh Giddey's been on a tear. He's been a top 5 guy over the last 3 games, 17 points, 11 boards, 8 assists, 2.3 steals, 0.7 blocks, great percentages in his 27.6 minutes per game. It's a stupidly small sample size, but it's actually taken place over some time with some time off for him with the ankle issue. He's probable now. So the momentum from all of this production, it's there. It's always there for Josh Giddey because he's a big name. He's got a big fan base in fantasy, and that's just always going to be there. The big poppy popcorn numbers, it's always going to be there for Josh Giddey. It's the percentages, it's the defensive stats. And no, he's not turning the corner on defensive stats with this sample here. And the percentages, no, he's not turning the corner. But could he be a top 60 guy in 8 cat formats? Could he be a top 80 guy in 9 cat formats rest of season? Well, these numbers, they suggest that that's actually maybe not the highest watermark here. I don't think he could be an early round guy. I don't think in 9 cat formats, if you're including the turnovers, I don't think that he can cross the top 60 or anything like that. But he certainly threw his hat into the ring. And if you're sitting on Giddey right now, I might actually use all of that and try to package it to move on and see if I could get a better asset. Hell, I'd try to get Kobe White if I could. But the pivot, whether it's Aya Dosunmu when he gets healthy, the Dosunmu, Kobe, Josh Giddey, Jalen Smith, that quartet right there, that's what you want to look at when you're looking at Chicago. And on the other side of the line, Charlotte, they're just 2 wins behind the Wizards and the Pelicans in the tank race. And you got LaMelo Ball, doubtful left ankle and right wrist. Brandon Miller, doubtful left ankle. Cody Martin, doubtful left knee. So LaMelo Ball GMs were, and I was watching from the sidelines wishing that I had gotten in on this in the first few weeks of the season, just throwing parties and rightfully so. It's so much fun to watch those stats accumulate. You see these stupid stat lines. None of it is really always great basketball. He's just chucking threes. He's just, it's fun. It's fun almost to watch somebody play that, that clean. It's not a clean brand of basketball. It's LaMelo ball. And, but it's great statistically. Now the question is can he even keep this up at all? If they're going to be trying to lose games, if he's trying to protect his body, if he's not, playing for the love of the game to channel Rick Kamla here, this goes downhill really quick. And I don't know what to tell you other than that he's a boom and or bust guy. Like in your playoff format, does he take the last 3 weeks of the season and just junk it? Very possible. So I don't think you evaluate LaMelo Ball as a second round, first round, third round guy. You might go 4th round and respect the upside, but also respect the downside. Miles Bridges, top 60 over his last 6 games. So that's a nice bounce back for him. And actually there might be some hidden value because he's kind of the guy they go to when all of this goes bad. Has dealt with some injury stuff this year. So he's a good candidate to sit if they want to try to win the tank race. Only other interesting thing in Charlotte is Nick Richards just got erased from planet Earth. That happened because Mark Williams returned. And it's pretty jarring. I mean, Nick Richards literally outside of the top 350 over the last 2 to 3 weeks. And it happened in a snap. I don't think there's any real rationale to keep Nick Richards unless you're literally saying, I'm betting against Mark Williams staying healthy. Because if Mark Williams goes back down, Nick Richards is more of an able body. He could come back in and we could restart the discussion. Is he a top 100? Is he a top 120? Is he a top 150 guy? But this top 350 stuff is for the birds. I mean, you're literally looking at him as a luxury stash on the back of a Mark Williams injury. Maybe if you have Mark Williams, as I do in some situations, I got both of these guys, Nick Richards becomes a better asset in that case because then he can be your handcuff. But all the way off the radar, that Nick Richards. Let's move it into New York. 11.5-point favorites on the road. In fact, there's a trend. Tonight it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 road favorites. So react accordingly, betting world. 11.5-point favorites for New York. We got Jalen Brunson, questionable right calf tightness. This is after the 55-point game over the weekend. Everything's really normal in New York. The only thing that I've noticed that's worth mentioning, I've been mentioning it for about a week now, is we've seen a Mikal Bridges for OG Anunoby swap in terms of fantasy value. Bridges top 25 over the last 6 games, Anunoby top 130. I think this reverses itself and we see more of what we saw early in the season. But the concern with Anunoby is, does he get some sort of an injury that takes his currently peak athleticism and moves it back to where I thought it might be in the preseason from the beginning, which I was wrong about? It moves his athleticism back, and does he then stop getting the hordes of defensive stats and threes that he's been bringing to the table? I do think that this returns back to the form that we saw in the first, say, 20 games of the season, where Anunoby's on top and Bridges is more of like a top 80, top 100 guy, even cranking, playing every night, just going to compile his way to probably exactly where we ranked him, right around 50. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. Anunoby, though, if this is real, if there is a switch in value, I mean, he could go from being an early round guy to being something of a top 80 guy, maybe even lower if things get worse. I'm not going to recommend that you guys do anything about that. I think you still treat Anunoby as at minimum a top 50 value going forward, and we'll see how things go. This is a small sample size, a small blip on the radar. Josh Hart slid a little bit down to top 50 over the last few weeks. Let's see, some somewhat breaking news. Hawks say Larry Nance Jr. sustained a right hand injury during Saturday's game. Will undergo surgery on January 2nd to repair the fracture. Onyeka Okongwu, if he's floating around your waiver wire, he would be worth picking up, just knowing that his job is basically secured. And I think, and do we have Atlanta on the board today? I have Atlanta somewhere in my brain here. Atlanta, it's interesting. You're starting to see Vic Krejci and Gary Bird, Garrison Matthews. Shout out Keith Chenard, I think is how, I don't know if that's how you say the name, but the Atlanta media is awesome as well. I almost kind of want to become an Atlanta Hawks fan for a little bit here. But those two have been getting some minutes in production because Bogdan Bogdanovic has been out. So if you're in a deep format, go give those dudes a look. It just feels like they're getting thin in Atlanta, and that's opportunity in those deeper formats. But Onyeka Okongwu, everybody, and we're waiting for Onyeka Okongwu to be a thing, and it might not ever be a thing, but he's a top 150 guy at worst. And with the job security that he currently has, as long as he can personally stay healthy, that's what he'll get you. And maybe just one day he will step into the upside that we've all been talking about. I do believe we were talking about Knicks and Wizards. And I really don't want to talk about the Hawks because I want to talk about the Wizards. I almost led the show with Justin Champagnie. Top 45 over the last 7 games, top 30 over the last 2 games. Had a huge game. Was it 31 points? I think 13 of 15 shooting. I don't have it in front of me. A bunch of defensive stats. It was awesome. And the Champagnie family is got its own little quarter over here. Is awesome. We were big Champagnie fans. And but at any rate, I don't want to get on that track. Kyle Kuzma off the injury report, so he could come back in and screw it all up. Jordan Poole, questionable left hip contusion. Bilal Coulibaly, top 45 over his last 6 games. As I mentioned, Champagnie, top 45. So the Wizards are cooking. Even Bub Carrington, who can't have fantasy value unless you punt stuff, top 185 over the last 2 games, 36 minutes, 12 points, a triple, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. No defensive stats in his last one, 57% shooting. So he actually made his shots in this game. I think this is all looking really good for these guys, even though they are in the tank race. If they just go with this group right here, the ones we want, not Kuzma, but Poole, you're cool. Bilal, definitely you're on the team. Champagnie, love you. Carrington, especially if you can deal with the deficiencies. I think that there's that sneaky upside that I've been talking about all season where he might just get a bunch of stats for you. I like the Wizards, and Yeah. What was the last thing I was going to tell you about these guys? Nope, I don't have anything else I was going to tell you guys about these guys. But the Wizards, I'm just excited about. Oh, Champagny, that was the thing. His two-way contract status is really funky, right? So he's got 50 games available to this season. He's already played 7 of them. So when you look at Champagny going forward, he's been about a top 80, top 90 guy, depending on which format. And he's done that in about 25 minutes per game. So I wouldn't be concerned about the two-way thing. I think it could come into play. And maybe if they're saying we're going to try to manage this through the rest of the season, they have, I believe, 53 games left in Washington. So he would miss 10 games by virtue of this two-way contract status if they cap out at the 50. I don't know what the contract stuff is going to be like. I don't know how this would all work out. Maybe they take him off a two-way and they put him on a regular deal to play him the rest of the year, or maybe they take him out for 10 games the rest of the way. Maybe it's annoying, right? Maybe they just do it like a little here and a little there, and you can't really plan around it. And there's no reporting on it because he's a two-way guy. We've seen this in the past. I'm hearing in my ear that the Wizards are probably sellers, will likely need to fill roster spots and convert him later on. Yeah. Andre never misses a beat. It's kind of where I'm going with this. I feel like they're going to find a way to pay this guy for one. I mean, he's a Champagny. He's good, though. My other Champagny played 11 minutes and practically had zeros across the board the other day. We'll talk about that later. But I think Champagny, Justin, that is really going under the radar. Like this is fantasy gold. We've seen this from him in the past. Like bad team, new guy going off. Like, oh man, it just feels perfect. And that I would say is a run, don't walk. Don't let Justin Champagny go to your opposing GM. That's just not cool. All right, let's get to the Clippers at New Orleans. Clippers -6 in this game. We got an interesting little phenomena going on here. You got Kawhi Leonard targeting January 4, the great Law Murray of The Athletic, on top of the case here. And I feel like what they're doing is they're giving Ivica Zubac and Norm Powell like the swan song, saying, hey, guys, you just go get your numbers. Go get your numbers. You know who's coming back. You're not going to get your numbers when he's back. So, you guys go out and get your numbers now. Zubac, top 75 on the season, as well as the last 5 games. Top 10 top 35 for Zubac on the season in the last 5 games. Top 75 in the season. That's my dictation software screwing everything up. Top 10 for Norman Powell over the last. Oh man, my dictation software is bad. Top 15 for Norm Powell over the last 5 games. Top 10 for Zubac. Norm Powell top 35 on the season. Zubac top 75 on the season. Okay, that's all gibberish to just basically say everybody knows things are going to come back for these guys once Kawhi is on the floor. But those two players in general are doing everything they can to give you all the ammo you need to try to push a sell high out there. And what can you try to target in return? I think with Zubac, maybe getting a top 75 guy going forward would be a good return for Powell. If you could get anything in the top 50, but also top 75, I think that also makes that kind of a deal work. And when I'm talking about the dictation software, guys, maybe you're longtime listeners and I actually cannot type. I have a compressed nerve in my neck from years of typing that prohibits me from typing now. I actually removed a rib from my body in a surgery to help fix it. So I use dictation software. And there's all sorts of fun stuff on these sheets that usually doesn't hit the show, but it might. If it's on the paper, there's a good chance that I'm going to read it. It's the whole Ron Burgundy thing, just way less funny. Derek Jones, just outside of the top 100 over the last 4 games with 2.5 combined defensive stats and not turning the ball over. So he's somebody that you can take a look at for the next week or so. I do think when they bring back Kawhi, it's going to scramble the circuits and you're going to see some stuff all over the board for that team. On the other side of the coin, this is what I want to see Washington morph into, is what New Orleans is doing. They've got their defined roles. They got players that are just, they're going to play for the rest of the season. And maybe, we didn't expect it, but I really don't think Zion plays with this team ever again. I don't think Brandon Ingram plays for this team ever again. That seems, I don't know if I would bet actual money on those two things. It feels like those two things are like 50%, greater than 50% chance that they play, but it just doesn't feel like it. Like, why would you bring those two players back into this situation? You're trying to lose games and you're also letting these players, Trey Murphy, Yves Missi, DeJounte Murray, Brandon Boston. I mean, CJ McCollum's probably not in your future, but you got consistency. Hey, if CJ's not back, you can give Jose Alvarado a full boat of minutes until he falls apart. But these guys are getting good developmental minutes. The vibe around the team, despite losing, is probably pretty good. So anyway, I want Washington to look like these New Orleans guys. Trey Murphy on a top 20 bender over the last 5 games, 26 points, 4 triples, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and stellar percentages over those 5 games. That's why you waited on Trey Murphy. Is he a little bit of an injury risk? Yeah. Is a bad team a bad place for a bad injury risk? Well, he's not a bad injury risk. He's a little bit of a one. But man, Trey Murphy, he was going at 100 in drafts, and he's going to possibly be inside the top 25 the rest of the way. And I don't think the market has figured that out. Yves Missi, questionable in this game for a back contusion. Don't worry about it. If he plays, the late round guy. If not, they will just throw out Daniel Tice for 20 minutes and then figure out the rest on the way. DeJounte Murray, still just top 75. He just can't hit a shot. Same with Herbert Jones, late round numbers. I think both of these guys are going to see big 30, 40, 50 ranks. In the case of Jones, improvements in their ranks. So buy low windows for both of those guys. Brandon Boston, it's going to be bad for him, especially if Ingram and Zion do come back. I think that's going to be a really bad thing for his value. You probably won't be able to hold on. I actually dropped Boston in a lot of places, but I do think that this guy fits so well for February, March, and April for this team. So if you have to drop him, drop him. And it's probably a pretty good time to do so because you can turn around and get him back pretty easily. But just keep your eye on this guy. And when you do have a chance to stream, or you're looking at stashes, when the wire's thin, give him a look, because I think that, like I said, February, March, and April are going to be real good for him. Hey guys, oh wait, Missi available to play. Sweet. I mean, the New Orleans Pelicans are just so damn reliable. I love it. Hey guys, you enjoying the show? Are you enjoying my my terrible phonetics and my TOS stories? Well, if you are and you're watching on YouTube, drop a thumbs up on this video. If you're watching on Twitter, please do follow at Ethos Fantasy NBA. Do that on both Twitter as well as Blue Sky, and also over on Threads. And if you're listening on the pod feed, you guys would be doing us a huge favor if you guys would go and give us a 5-star review. Let's move on to Denver -7 at Utah. Kind of seems a little perfect, the Denver -7. That said, who knows with these guys? The reporting locally is that Nikola Jokic is disgusted with his teammates. Aaron Gordon, right calf strain. He's going to be out. How long? Who knows? I grabbed Peyton Watson in a bunch of leagues. He ended up being my pick of the week. It felt like I got him everywhere. Top 175 in 24 minutes per game this season. On the season, 2.5 combined cash counting stats of threes, steals, and blocks. So what does it mean? It means that he's probably a late round guy for however long Gordon's out. I want to see what happens with Christian Brown. He's sitting on a full month of just top 150 play. So he's basically the guy that we were worried about him being heading into the season. That was the book on him, was that he couldn't overcome the stat set to be something better than a top 150 guy. Well, he's got a month of being what we thought he might be this season. He had a great start. We all took the plunge. I got him on a bunch of rosters, and I'm not even giving him up, especially with Aaron Gordon going out again. The question here is, does that Aaron Gordon injury restart the engine for Christian Brown? And then with Watson, I think we know what's going to happen. But as this team loses players, you see a guy like Russell Westbrook. He's been a late round guy in the season. And oh, the dictation on that's great. I can't read that on the air. So we'll watch and see what's going on with this Gordon thing, and can that restart Christian Brown? Might be my most interesting thing there for their side. And then the Utah side, this is where it feels like the tank race might be on. Like John Collins, all of a sudden, he's just out. He's like out of this game, hip contusion. And he's also paired that with his last 4 games haven't been great, like just top 150 in those 4 games. So the Collins situation, it went from, wow, this guy's just crushing it with top 30 value, and he's got a way to navigate this. And, I've been very pro Collins on this show. Now it's like, what's going to happen with John Collins, man? Is he done? Like, did this all just happen really quickly? And now they're just, Keontae George questionable. This injury report's better than it's been. the last week, but over the last week, you've seen so many guys popping up as questionable on injury reports. And so is this the beginning of the end with the tanking stuff going on? Also, you've noticed the trade wins, pardon me, have been picking up around the league. And so, Collins is one of the top trade guys this season. So are the Jazz just holding him back so they can participate in all of these discussions? And we're not even that close to the trade deadline. I kind of think maybe this is just them keeping him healthy and being a little bit overprotective of him. But who knows on the ground? It's a smaller market. We don't get a ton of injury reporting. You're not dropping John Collins. I think the question is are you crazy enough to buy? And I would love to get your stories on that. Please send me, did you go and get John Collins and what did you get him for? Because I kind of think you could get him for a late round guy right now. I mean, maybe that wouldn't pan out because people would look at his season to date numbers and say, oh, those are really good. I think top 75, you're probably cooking. Like you would get John Collins back in that kind of a deal. I think maybe the move is to throw a top 100 guy with a big name that's, projected to be a top 100 guy, but he's got a big name, and see if you can pull it off. Top 75 is probably worth it for the upside potential. But we are staring at the worst part of this equation. And if it's going to go well, he'll just get healthy. He'll play for Utah and that'll be that. And then we'll get into the trade part later, and he'll sort of survive all of this stuff. But if they start holding him out and then you're really just talking about that post-trade deadline scenario, and who knows how that'll go, who knows where he will be, and if he will have the freedom that he has in Utah to be a top 30 guy. So I like top 100 here, but it could work out. Like if you went top 100 and then all this cleared up and he's back to being a top 30 guy, you will win big. So it's a tough needle to thread, but I do think there's some opportunity there. George, questionable, as mentioned. Lauri Markkanen, top 30 over the last 7 games. So Markkanen's giving you what you need to get out there and market Markkanen. Colin Sexton, top 90 over the last 7 games. Here we go again. I mean, I sit there and talk like a freaking broken record about Colin Sexton being a top 75 kind of a guy. And then I had to slide my odds on that as maybe it's probably not going to happen. It's like a 1/3 chance. Well, here we are, the 1/3 chance hit. And now all of a sudden he looks like the guy that might navigate through this mess. Walker Kessler, top 125 over the last 7 games because he's shooting 35% from the foul line on 3 attempts per game. So he can't make a foul shot right now. And that's really hurting his production, really hurting his ranks. And I don't know what you do with that, but you just know about it. And then you maybe can parlay that into some sort of a move in the coming weeks if trends continue. Let's get to Dallas at Sacramento. Dallas, a 4-point underdog heading into Sacramento here. And you've got injured star theory with Luka out. You've got Derek Lively questionable. You got PJ Washington returning. Najee Marshall still suspended for clocking. I guess we'll call it clocking. Yusuf Nurkic. So I kind of like this from a betting side. I wouldn't take the Sac side. Dallas, the question is Sacramento at home. Do they grow some fortitude and, do they come together and try to win this game? And I think they would be bigger favorites if they had more good juju around the team. And so let me hit the Dallas side, and I'll hit the Sacramento side in a second because there's pieces there that are actually relevant to fantasy. So we know that Lively and Gafford have a time split, and we kind of know what those values are. And we also know that Gafford's been struggling. And the good news is that he has gotten the blocks part of his game figured out over the last 4 contests. He's got 2.3 blocks per game. Now that's come at the expense of rebounds, just 4.8 during that span. Some opportunity here for Gafford to restart his value, especially if Lively continues to miss time with the hip stuff. But regardless of Lively and Gafford and who's playing and who's not, with Luka out, that also provides some context for Gafford to sort of get back on track. I think both these guys are top 100 guys. Gafford's the guy who kind of has the wiggle, though. It feels like, as we've seen, he can slide back to the top 120 position. But when he was really good, especially when he was, whether it was with Washington or even with Dallas, like he was reaching up into the top 60 in these lower minutes per game. And it was all the activity on defense. Are the 2.3 blocks per game a sign that maybe something's changed? Maybe he got a little healthier, maybe whatever was bothering him. Maybe he's just simply getting some momentum in a small sample size. Could be the opponents, who knows? But if Gafford's going to be good, he needs to get those blocks. And if he's going to get those blocks and he's going to be closer to a top 80 or a top 60 guy, well, right now he's barely being valued as a late round guy out there. So there's a little bit of opportunity out there on the trade market for you guys. Spencer Dinwiddie and Quentin Grimes, they've had virtually the same value over the last 8 games. A lot of Dinwiddie versus Grimes questions, and which one would you like? I think I answered Grimes the last time. And basically what I would say after really looking at this is that Dinwiddie has probably the better stat set because he's getting you the value that he's getting you right now. And he's doing it despite hitting just 37% of his shots. That's been the book on him for quite a while. But if he can correct that to like 40, I think it's going to give him a huge boost. And on the other side, Grimes is already in a mostly efficient state. So I like Dinwiddie over Grimes now. I think it's so close. I think it could change at a moment's notice. But if you're looking for a tiebreaker between the two, I think Dinwiddie has a little bit more higher he can go on his side. PJ Washington, with all of the drama, he's out of game and all that. He hasn't really been able to have a big PJ Washington, push here without Luka. He was great without Luka. So you might actually have some space to grab PJ Washington if folks don't really completely understand how good he was. Now's the time before he goes off to make an offer. And Sacramento's the team that likes to give those big games up. Just putting that out there. As for Sacramento, I think what you're hoping for, and I got a ton of Kings players on fantasy squads, I think what you're hoping for here is that they don't just completely implode. Because if they completely implode, what's the value for Domantas Sabonis? What's the value for De'Aaron Fox? Malik Monk, it's been okay. It's not impenetrable. He could go to the bench. He's the kind of guy that you could see him fall off significantly if the team just goes south. And that's what we're looking at here, folks. Like, the leadership in the locker room for De'Aaron Fox was the question mark before the big deal. And we've seen all of the bad leadership stuff probably in succession for the last week or so. I don't think when Rich Paul shows up in Sacramento and then Domantas Sabonis looks like his dog died or something, they all look like that everybody's dead man walking, like that the plan that everybody came up with before the season is dead. It's done. It's over. All that stuff is like, why are we here? DeMar DeRozan, why are we here? I signed here for this. De'Aaron, you're going to go somewhere else. You're not long for Sacramento. It's going to be Domantas Sabonis with his big contract and what, for the rest of the way. I think everybody's trying to figure out what's what in that city. The power structure, the issues are at the top with the ownership. And then it kind of like in trying to satisfy whatever's going on with the ownership in the front office, your general manager, Monty McNair, Wes Wilcox, right-hand man. These guys are probably knowledgeable at what they do, but are trying to navigate all of that crap. And so nobody wants to be there for it. I don't think the team believes that De'Aaron Fox is going to be there long-term. So how can that guy lead that team? And especially with the leadership stuff that's been going on. I mean, he goes on Draymond Green's podcast and says that they have a rim protection issue, which is true. It's Domantas Sabonis. He can't protect the rim. That showed up in the playoffs. That's why they can't win a playoff series. Domantas Sabonis is a great dude, by the way. He's a hard worker, and he's a thrill to watch play. But that's the reality of the situation. And that's why you're probably not going to stay there long-term if you're De'Aaron Fox, is you don't think you can win. But it's all been managed so poorly, and the lack of leadership has been so kind of easy to spot that this team bouncing back when they've folded for the last week at home. Well, they're supposed to bounce back. They're supposed to have the dead coach bounce. They're not having a dead coach bounce. They didn't have it last game, and it's not likely that they're going to have it this game. If they do, they buy themselves some time. The only thing that's going to save these guys is wins. But if this thing goes sour, Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, you're going to see the value start to fall out the bottom. Keegan Murray's not going to have the bounce back that he's basically due to have. And if they start making big moves, Keegan Murray is the guy that you guys want to key in on, because he is right now kind of top 100-ish at best. But if they unlock him, he could be top 50 easy. So I think you almost want to buy into the idea that maybe Keegan Murray is the guy that survives this if it all goes south. Keon Ellis, I think Doug Christie, it was a tweet I had, Doug Christie and Mike Brown are not idiots. They're not basketball idiots. And the fact that Keon Ellis still played just 13 minutes with both of those guys at the helm, that shows you that there's something else going on in the front office why Keon Ellis isn't playing. It's so obvious he should be playing. I'll leave it at that. But the will Keon play because he's a top 160 guy despite all this BS? Will there be a Keon breakout? Well, that would be a crowd pleaser. That's for sure. I mean, if you're Sac and you're looking for an optics win, that would be your optics win right there. But is it going to happen? I've been buying into the idea that maybe because something has to give there. So there's something that might have to happen in a trade. Something might just break this loose, and then you're all of a sudden getting all that permanent upside that we've been talking about forever. But Devin Carter's returning soon, and who knows, that might be the foil to it. So it's a luxury stash at best. All right, let's get out of that mess. My God. Cleveland, -4.5 at Golden State. Cleveland, everybody's doing great. Same story. Donovan Mitchell cranking at a top 15 level the last 15 games. That's good. Dean Wade's actually had a little moment here, top 50 over the last 4 games, 2.1 combined defensive stats, 2.5 triples, 73% shooting, all unsustainable. But he's been the guy that's been picking up the slack. Max Strus still way off the radar. Isaac Okoro still out for the next 5 games with a shoulder injury, at least the next 5 games. So Wade has been the guy stepping up into that mess of extra players. Strus, I want to see what he does to everybody, but it doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon. On the other side, Golden State, they're the interesting ones. Steph Curry's off the injury report, but it's not great that he looks like he's managing a knee injury at this point. So we'll just keep a lot of attention on that, but not get too worried for now. Season long, he's been fine. Curry, top 15. Wiggins, top 90. The numbers that are interesting, that are relevant, Trace Jackson Davis, top 200 on the season. I want to get to the last 3 weeks here real quick. This is the dictation software. Brandon P. Pajemski, he's 210 on the season. 235 for Jonathan Kuminga with 63.5% foul shooting. More on that right now. Let's look at the last 3 weeks because obviously post-trade, things have changed a little bit. And there was action in fab bids for Trace Jackson Davis. And that's because he's been a top 75 guy over the last 3 weeks. 11 points, 7.5 boards, 2.5 assists, 1.5 blocks in 22 minutes per game. That's the Trace Jackson Davis people were hoping for on draft day. Is it going to continue? It's unclear. That said, yes, Jonathan Kuminga, everybody. That Trace Jackson Davis, is this real? Is this going to be the way it is the rest of the season? And it sure seems like it should be. I'd give it about a 2/3 chance of working out at late round value. So make your add drop decisions accordingly. Pajemski, last 3 weeks, top 130. Buddy Hield, top 250. Okay, I'm finally out on Buddy Hield. Congratulations to me, everybody. I finally took the leap. This is how you know he's going to go out and have a massive game, 30 points, 5 3-pointers, and so on. Like that's going to happen here. But I don't think we can wait for it. I don't think we can bank on it. I think it was interesting that Dre lit him up during the game, but that stuff happens all the time. And this one's the one that just got caught by the hot mic. Hield, there is a fantasy basketball player in there somewhere, but it's just not happening right now. And we're going to just move on from that. Pods, I don't know, especially with the injury. I don't know if this is the run out and grab Pods moment, but at least there's signs of life. And at least he's feisty. He looked like a defeated player that had no confidence. And I'll take a feisty Pods with an injury over that any day of the week. Just keep an eye on him in most formats for now. And if things are going to start to move, I think he'll be a top 100 guy and no more. So you don't have to jump the gun. Somebody else will probably beat you to him. Kuminga. This is where punting matters. If you're not punting free throws, you're not doing it right with Kuminga. 170 over the last 5 games, despite 21 points, a 3.5, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. It's the defense. Just 1.1 combined defensive stats, 68.3% foul shooting on 8 attempts per game. You got to be punting free throws there or it gets bad real quick. If not, if you are punting free throws, I think you're onto something. And it does feel like Kuminga's turning a little bit of a corner. I don't want to give him all the credit for turning the corner, but it feels like he's maybe a quarter of the corner. Philly -5 at Portland. Philadelphia basically getting season-long numbers out of their key guys for the last 3 weeks. So we're starting to see some normalization here. Maxey top 10, Embiid top 25, Paul George top 65. I think the Paul George number is the one that's the most interesting of the bunch. Embiid obviously will get better. He's not a top 25 guy. He's a top 5 guy when he's on the floor. Paul George, I think he's going to probably maybe level out at top 40. That'll be disappointing for folks that took a chance on him as an upside guy. You wanted him more in the top 25, but it doesn't seem like, at least right now, that he's ready to take over ball games. Maybe that changes as he gets a little bit healthier. I think that guy probably needs 2 weeks off, don't we all? Caleb Martin, top 125 over the last 3 weeks. So he's been picking up the slack. If you're looking for a streamer option, you're looking for somebody to the back end of your roster, Caleb Martin's getting it done, at least until he's not after the next injury. Embiid questionable in this one with a foot issue. Drummond questionable with a left toe sprain. These guys have 3 games between Monday and Thursday. So how this all gets managed, it's going to basically just flow wherever it's going to flow. We haven't seen Drummond be good with Embiid out. If both of these guys out, the dancing bear, Gershon Yabusele, he gets you top 200 in 24 minutes per game. So if he climbs up to 27 or 28, think like top 150, top 175. So basically just a streaming option there. Portland, kind of interesting. I don't know. They go back and forth on these guys. Are they interesting? Are they not? Are they a terrible fantasy squad? Well, if you look at the season as a whole, they've been a terrible fantasy squad. Their best player, DeAndre Ayton, he's missed 9 games and he's a top 65 or whatever since in the games that he plays. That's their best fantasy guy this season, unless you caught Robert Williams for a week and never played him again. But Ayton going well right now on a top 24 run over the last 5, 17 and 12 to go with 3 defensive stats per game. If that doesn't say sell high, I don't know what does. If you're not out there selling DeAndre Ayton, you're not doing it right. Shaedon Sharpe, top 50 over the last 7 games, 20 points, 2 threes, 4 boards, 3 assists, and great percentages. So if you ever wanted an idealized version of Shaedon Sharpe, here it is. It's not going to continue. Probably also a great time to sell high. He was available on a lot of waiver wires, so this is all very kind of shaky stuff. Anthony Simons, or as my dictation software says, Anthony Simons, top 50 over the last 5 games or so. So he's been doing well. Also advise sell anytime one of these guys is doing well, sell high. Jeremy Grant had a couple big games earlier in the year. He's been a top 115 guy in the season, barely playing. He's questionable with a face injury. Williams, questionable with an ankle. Tamani Kamara, questionable with a foot. Banton, questionable with a hip. It's going to be this way the rest of the year. Avdia, top 115 or so over the last month. I think somehow he's consistent in all this mess. Tamani Kamara, top 120 over the last 6 games. Maybe he's a consistent late round value the rest of the way, but everything else is going to zigzag all over the place. And the big question that I have with this Portland team is, what are we doing with Robert Williams? What are we doing with Donovan Clingan? I know the answer with Clingan. I'm not dropping Donovan Clingan. If somebody is, I'm picking him up. I don't care. The dude in 12 minutes will get you 12 rebounds and 5 blocks. That's just fun. I like the thrill of opening up the box score. Is it a 0? Is it a 500? I don't know. It might be either. It's exciting. But Robert Williams is the one that I had to drop him in a bunch of spots, and I needed that, I needed the center body. I needed the upside. I needed it all. And I just couldn't pass on Jay Huff. But I couldn't go with whatever this is right now for Robert Williams. I don't know if they're sandbagging, waiting for a trade. I don't know if his ankle is really that bad and he hasn't played a ton of basketball, and a man of his size is going to have creaky joints, and can he actually get up and have these big games anymore? These questions were just really tough because he just showed up and did what Robert Williams is capable of doing, which is blocking a ton of shots and getting you tons of numbers. And he's a top 15 guy for a small stretch there. It just doesn't look like he can play ball. It's all good in theoretics, but you got to actually see it happen on the court. So I personally cut in about, I'd say 2/3 of the spots that I had Robert Williams. I cut Robert Williams. That's a bummer, but I will not do that with Donovan Clingan. And I can't wait till the end of the season. And when he goes off, that's going to be fun. Guys, before I move into some of the weekend action, I wanted to stop and just let you guys know what we're doing here at Sports Ethos. And basically, the vision here is to just keep adding value for our subscribers, value for you guys on shows with, pods and videos and things like that. That's more on the free side. And then through our news feeds, tools, we've got a new app that's out. So that's what we're all about here. We definitely want to continue to keep creating more opportunities to employ more people in this industry. Things seem to be going the other direction. We want to keep going the other way. So if you guys want to support us, it's really easy. Just visit sportsethos.com, check us out, consider subscribing. It's our belief that a value-based offering, which actually generates revenue, is the way for this industry to get back on track. Ever since this social media algorithm nonsense started happening like 5 or 6 years ago, it's been working for us. And we do think that that's the way out. So if you guys want to support what we're doing, consider getting a membership. And on our end, we'll just promise that we keep doing the hard work to keep getting you guys championships. Anyway, check it out at sportsethos.com and check out the free FREE Sports Ethos app. That thing is freaking brilliant. I love it. I'm sitting there in the mess of all of this holiday hullabaloo, and I've got the app and I'm just refreshing it. And it's got just nothing but the pure fantasy information I need. None of the junk. I don't need to see whatever the hell's on the For You tab or what the hell people are hawking on social media. It is beautiful. I love it. Check it out. It's free, the Sports Ethos app. Okay, over the weekend, some quick notes. I got to give a shout out to Goga Batatse. He might be a waiver wire pickup of the year winner. I don't see what's going to stop him at this point. He's got great percentages for a big man doing what he's doing out there. He's blocking shots. He's hitting the occasional three, boards, rebounds, assists. Can't get enough there. Andrew Nemhard has thrown his hat in the ring. I love what Steve said the other day on our Monday show, or probably our Friday show last week. I don't know what day it is. Do you know what day it is? I don't know what day it is. He's like, is this Andrew Nemhard's team? Well, that would be bad for the Tyrese Halliburton hive, but Nemhard has had his foot on the gas and he's not letting go. I think there's a ton of talent there. There's obviously some injury risk on a day-to-day basis, and he acts like it's his team. And he's been a late round guy on great percentages, don't get me wrong, but this has impacts. I think it brings Tyrese back every now and then. Tyrese had a big one in the last game. But Benedict Mathurin, I think that Nemhard being good is the final nail in the coffin for Mathurin having any real upside, punting aside. In Toronto, Kelly Olynyk, stinker in 12 minutes. That's a bummer. I think there's a lot of people in fantasy, in the fantasy universe that want to see him do things and be good. But if he can only play 12 minutes a game, we are now, I believe, week 3 with his return, and we're still seeing this stuff. And there are some back-to-backs here this week for him, so maybe they were trying to get ahead of this, but it just feels like they're comfortable playing him 12 minutes. And if they want to reach up and have him get 24, and then he has the big Kelly Olynyk stuff, like I think they're comfortable with the 12 minutes happening every other game or so. And so that if he has probably one more 12-minute game with no production, then I'm probably all the way out for the foreseeable future with Olynyk. But that said, I think if you were already all the way out, especially if you're in a standard 150 player league, I wouldn't blame you one bit. As for the Tyler Hero and Ullman Thompson fight, if you want to call it that, I do think it's interesting from a Houston perspective that they're really developing one of the nastier DNAs in the NBA. Udoka, Dylan Brooks, Fred VanVleet, and Thompson just wasn't having it. Hero's post-game comments were hilarious because he's a funny dude. And yeah, this wasn't a fight. It was Thompson throwing a 180-pound dude to the ground and everybody kind of getting into it after that. But look for whatever suspensions might come. And then on the Miami side, somebody like a Duncan Robinson, a Haywood Highsmith, you might actually even just expect a totally crap line from the entire box, because once you take out Tyler Hero, things start to go sideways real quick. I don't know if it rises to the threshold of him being suspended, but they usually like to give everybody a game. Thompson's probably going to get a game. Do we see Tari Eason get an accelerated return to action because of the does he get an early return? I can't do the private chat right now. If we does he get an early return because now all of a sudden Ullman Thompson is out, and maybe we'll see a little Reed Shepherd if there's some suspensions there. So I don't know what the suspension situation is. So we'll take a look once that happens. But just start looking down roster for those two squads. Jay Huff got 17 minutes. Obviously, Sacramento, you got to pick up the phone, call Jay Huff, save the timeline. Jay Huff is the only thing that can do it for you guys. Do it. Seriously, do it. I dare you. It will work, and then you can thank me later. But he got back. You've got Zach Edey. He is dealing with a concussion. Who knows how long that'll be? We might be right back to the three-man big man rotation. Brandon Clark dealing with some injury stuff. So I think Jay Huff gets a window to show his stuff right now. And can he be a 20-plus minute guy that actually steps into this upside? Because he flirts with the top 150, he flirts with the top 175 in his 14 minutes per game, and it's great. You get the threes, you get the blocks. I think there's more he can accomplish on a basketball floor than just those two things. But can he eventually step into something like Edey gets hurt or, somebody else gets hurt? It's Memphis. Somebody's always getting hurt. I mean, look what would happen if Jaren Jackson got hurt in Memphis? I mean, there's a lot of questions about ways that Jay Huff could get minutes. Anyway, I'm not telling you to run and go grab Jay Huff. If you need a big man or if you're looking to stash a big man for like the second half of the season and you get some upside out of that position, Jay Huff is worth a look. Dante DiVincenzo went nuts this weekend. 26 points, 7 boards, 4 assists, 5 threes. The rumblings around this, we've been talking about it for a week and talking about the reporting coming out of Minnesota, that the fact that they wanted to talk about he needs more shots, all of this stuff is code from upper management. Hey, we're going to play this guy. We're going to actually greenlight his shots. We're going to actually make him a part of the game plan. And it feels like the pivot for Dante DiVincenzo is at least probably here. I'll give it a 60, 70% chance that the pivot for Dante DiVincenzo is here. And what's great about that is it comes with top 50 upside if it all goes well. And it's not all going to go well in Minnesota because Julius Randle's still there. It's still a mess in Minnesota, but that's the upside target if it does all go well, or if they make a trade for Julius Randle at some point in time. Dante DiVincenzo has so much upside. That's why we've been talking about him all year. And of course, if he's going well, it doesn't matter what's going on with Julius Randle. He's at minimum a late round guy, if not a top 100 guy or better. As for the Champagnes, the one I want to talk about is Julian, and he had just 11 minutes. And I would describe this as a full strength game. For whatever reason, both teams took it seriously, and you had 11 players play more than 30 minutes in this game. So almost like playoff rotations. Somehow Julian was on the outside of that looking in. That goes against everything I've been saying all season. Have they turned the corner on Julian Champagnie? I can't imagine that they have, but I do think that they wanted to see what things looked like at full strength with Devin Vassell, and they, for whatever reason, ran with it. Champagnie didn't hit his shots in this one, but he didn't take that many. But at this point in time, I won't advocate for a drop, but if you guys do it because you're in a smaller, shallower format, 150 player format, the top 100 value, the top 110 value that he was putting up before, that's not something that you're worried about losing. I won't shame you for doing it, but I personally won't be doing it. I'll be taking the next 2 weeks and letting Julian have a couple weeks off on my bench. And then we'll talk about it in about 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll see if this trend is actually a trend or not. Okay, guys, that's going to do it for this show. I do want to thank you guys for listening. I want to thank you guys for all of your questions, all of your feedback. Please keep sending it in. We do, I'm not even kidding. You guys sending in your feedback about all the things that we're doing and telling us what you guys want. Please do that, because that helps advise us with our roadmap and where we can go and where we can be better. It's all about improving and all of that stuff. Make sure you guys are subscribed to all of our stuff. We're doing different content for different places. So if you guys want to get all of our stuff, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, Fantasy NBA Today podcast, so you never miss an episode. Follow us on all the different social media platforms at Sports Ethos, at Ethos Fantasy NBA. If you're watching this live, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the thumbs up button. Go download the app. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you, Andre, for producing yet another great show. Thank you all for being a part of this journey. This has been Fantasy NBA Today, and this episode was presented by BetOnline. I will stay on for a little bit of extra questions after we close this show up for the pod feed. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, be well. Okay, question time. What do we got? Hold on, I got to close this thing, whatever the hell this thing is. Ben Machado. Brew, trades are flying in HB Dynasty 1, the OG league. Yes, they are. What the hell's going on? I was like, did I miss the trade deadline? Yeah, I'm rising in that league. I'm ready to take you guys down. Choose one weekly start 8-cat. I hope you're not starting against me, Ben. Draymond or TJD, both with 4 games, but a back-to-back on Saturday or Sunday. Draymond's been about a top 120, 130 guy this season. And it's not that great. I mean, every now and then he reaches up and he gets you a big poppy game, but he's also the guy in the injury report. I kind of would go TJD here. I feel like this could go the wrong way for you, but I think odds-wise, TJD has the better odds between the two. Dennis, help. Trade my Jarrett Allen for Mikal Bridges? I don't think so. I think Jarrett Allen, I mean, I've faded him in the past, but I've stopped fading him now. Top 50, I think, is basically all in. So, yeah, no, I would keep the Jarrett Allen side. Michael Chang, Nemhard, or Herbert Jones, 9-cat, 10 team. Herbert. Yes, Herbert. I was just trying to think, are you Michael Chang, the tennis player? We have a big tennis player contingent in the fantasy sports universe. Anyway, Dennis, add TJD or Nemhart? Oh, man. You might look at team needs for this question, but by the numbers right now, it's TJD. It doesn't feel good, but by the numbers, it's TJD. Paul says, should I trade away McCollum, Dick, Gafford for Amon and Reeves? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because you're going to get the good part of the season for Amon Thompson, and Reeves is about to go off. Nerdy nerd. Lakers, Christie, and Connect. Are they a pickup for 12-team head-to-head? Not for Christie. I don't think he's got enough fantasy juice there. And then Connect, I don't think. I mean, yes, he is. He is a pickup. I think 150 is the number you really want to hone in on. If you want to be aggressive there, say 125. And then if you can get something after that, it's all going to be gravy. Steve Sloan says, Brutang Clan. Yeah, I like that. Eric Shulkin, consider trading Bane and McHale for Ant. Oh, hell yeah. Do that deal. Get Anthony Edwards and then tell me all about it. I want to hear about that. Should I trade James Harden and Middleton for Cade in a categories league? 14-man league. James Harden and Middleton for Cade. No. Hang on to James Harden. He's going to be great for you. Cade's got injury risk, and the deficiencies in certain categories push Cade down to about top 30, top 40, and Harden at top 40 in 9-cat, top 20 in 8-cat the rest of the way. Beasley 10. Herbert, O'Neal, Gafford, TJD, or Mark Williams. 12-team, 9-cat, head-to-head, 11-man roster. Which one do I like? I like Herbert. I think he's got a top 40 upside, so he's going to win this thing no matter what. Mark Williams looked like the most interesting one, but you took it off the screen, Andre. You took it off the screen. Everything I said nice about you, I take it all back, just like you took that off the screen. All right, guys. Thank you, guys. It's seriously, 2024 has been very special for me personally. I should have said this on the show. It's been very special for me personally. Everything's been great. Like literally the most healthy, amazing, just like everything's pointing in the right direction. And having this be a part of my life and just the support that you guys bring and then also just the work that's being done here and this industry, it means a lot to me. And the fact that we can all kind of come together and make this work the way that we have and make sure that this thing keeps going and keeps going in the right way. It's been just a phenomenal experience. So thank you to all the people who here at Sports Ethos behind the scenes have been literally, just like moving mountains. Thank you to you guys. And then thank you to you guys out there for supporting it all. I can't say enough about it. All right, I'm going to get out of here. You guys be safe. Don't drive if you drink, all that good stuff. We'll see you guys in 2025. Peace.